You can now join as a member right from your phone. Become a member to watch the next episode before it's released. Thank you. Just as the heavenly evil god concealed himself to recover his strength, Xiaoyan and Lin Dong established the Great Thousand Alliance, calling upon all experts at the Earth Supreme level and above to launch a counterattack against the demon domain. Continuing from before, after pondering for a moment, the Flame Emperor and the Martial Ancestor asked, Chen, what gives you the confidence to say that, although the two of them had always held Chen in high regard, this matter concerned the survival of the Great Thousand World and could not be treated lightly? Under the many doubtful gazes, Chen calmly said, although I am not yet at the Saint grade, I am confident that I can cultivate to the third stage of the technique, the Three-God Realm. The so-called Three-God Realm is to allow one's clones to exist as if they were real, capable of enduring for a long time. If my two clones can each cultivate an original law body, then with the three of us joining forces and drawing upon the power of three original law bodies, I believe that even a late-stage Saint-grade expert would not be able to threaten me. And if sufficient resources can be gathered to support me, allowing me to break through to the Saint grade within 5 years, I have confidence that I can leave half a true name upon the Firmament ranking. As Chen's words fell, the entire hall fell into silence. All the Heaven Supremes stared at him in stunned disbelief, clearly shocked by what sounded like an almost absurd claim. After a long pause, the Flame Emperor and the Martial Ancestor spoke in a deep voice. Chen, are your words true? Chen smiled freely. At a time like this, to speak nonsense would only be courting death. The Flame Emperor and the Martial Ancestor nodded. In that case, we will treat a dead horse as if it were alive. The fate of the Great Thousand World will be entrusted to you? Chen's gaze sharpened like an unsheathed blade. I will give it everything I have. Seeing this, the Flame Emperor and the Martial Ancestor rose to their feet, their powerful aura enveloping the entire hall. With stern expressions, they declared, however, during this time, we will not stand idle either. From this moment onward, the heavenly evil god's plan to destroy the world shall be made public, and we shall gather all forces of the Great Thousand World to declare war upon the extraterrestrial evil races. Since the heavenly evil god requires 5 years to recover, we will ensure he knows no peace, even for a moment. All of you return to your clans for now. In 2 months, gather at the borders of the Great Thousand World to counterattack the demon domain. Yes. Within the hall, all the Heaven Supremes stood and responded in unison, their expressions resolute and fierce. Since the extraterrestrial evil races sought to annihilate the Great Thousand World, there was no choice but to fight them to the death. The war outside the northern desolate hill spread like a storm throughout every corner of the Great Thousand World in just a few days, shocking the entire world. However, the turmoil was quickly suppressed. The top superpowers of the world once again united to form the Great Thousand Alliance. They called upon all experts above a certain level to gather at the boundary between the Great Thousand World and the demon domain, seizing the initiative to launch a counteroffensive. In less than a month, countless experts gathered at the border. When the army assembled, the Flame Emperor and the Martial Ancestor appeared. Their presence injected boundless confidence into the countless experts. At this moment, they were unquestionably the leaders of the Great Thousand World. The two gazed at the demon domain, where demonic energy surged and gently waved their hands. A calm voice resounded across the heavens. Attack! Time flowed. In the blink of an eye, the counterattack against the demon domain lasted for 3.5 years. During this period, the Alliance army successfully destroyed 8 of the 32 great clans, as well as dozens of smaller clans, achieving remarkable results and weakening nearly a quarter of the enemy's strength. However, despite these achievements, the Flame Emperor and the Martial Ancestor felt no joy. Instead, as time passed, their expressions grew increasingly grave, because in these 3.5 years, they had still failed to locate the heavenly evil god. Yet faintly, they could sense a terrifying pressure forming. Clearly, the heavenly evil god was recovering his strength in some unknown place. Once he returned to his nine-eyed state, the lurking extraterrestrial evil races would retaliate with extreme brutality, repaying the losses of these years 100-fold. At that time, the Great Thousand World would be plunged into a storm of bloodshed. After nearly 4 years, the Alliance army returned. They did not conceal the truth, but openly announced everything. Although the enemy had been weakened, the heavenly evil god had not been stopped. Once he returned to his peak, the extraterrestrial evil races would inevitably make a comeback. This news caused widespread panic. To stabilize the situation, the Flame Emperor and the Martial Ancestor established a long defensive line at the border, remaining on constant alert. Another year passed. Deep beneath the northern desolate hill, upon 2 lotus platforms, 2 figures who had remained in seclusion for years slowly opened their eyes. At that instant, endless spiritual light burst forth, covering the entire region. Within that light, 2 ancient phantoms faintly appeared, one radiating boundless brilliance, unstoppable in its might, the other filled with vast, endless spiritual power. These were the endless light body and the great spirit saint body. After years of cultivation, both original law bodies had finally reached perfection. At the same moment, Chen sensed it. He let out a long breath, finally complete. But suddenly his pupils contracted. He abruptly turned his sharp gaze, shooting toward the demon domain. The heavenly evil god has appeared. At the same time, behind the borderline fortress city, the Flame Emperor and the Martial Ancestor opened their eyes. Flames and vast spiritual power flowed within their gaze. They exchanged a glance, and killing intent spread from their bodies, instantly enveloping the entire city. Countless experts turned pale and looked up. Behind them appeared Jun Er, Kai Lin Medusa, Ying Huan Huan, and Ling Qingzhu. What happened? The Flame Emperor and the Martial Ancestor said coldly, "The heavenly evil god has appeared. Pass down the order maximum alert. The front lines cease all offensive operations." They then raised their heads, gazing into the distant void, as if seeing through space itself. There, darkness churned. Endless demonic energy gathered into rolling black clouds. Above those clouds stood a white-robed figure with hands behind his back. On his forehead, 3 vertical eyes were open. He lifted his head slightly, looking toward the distant Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor, and murmured with a faint smile, "Gentlemen, it has been a long time." When Chen became the 3rd name inscribed on the Firmament ranking, what reactions did everyone have? Xiaoyan and Lin Dong cupped their fists toward him, congratulating him for finally reaching the same level as them. Picking up from before, as the heavenly evil god finished speaking, he extended his jade-like slender finger and lightly pointed at the 2 of them from afar. "When the day I descend arrives, it shall be the day your great thousand world is destroyed." With that single point, darkness descended upon heaven and earth, instantly severing the perception of the Flame Emperor and the Martial Ancestor. The spiritual light faded from their eyes as they stared silently into the void, their gazes gradually turning cold and sharp. One more day, and the heavenly evil god will descend. Next, let us test just how powerful the peak state of this nine-eyed evil god truly is. At the boundary between the Great Thousand World and the Fiend Domain, this continent known as the spiritual demonic continent was the most crucial battlefield between the Great Thousand World and the extraterritorial evil races. One side belonged to the Fiend Domain, the other to the Great Thousand World. For the past half-year, war had never ceased here. Yet today, this blood-soaked land fell into a brief silence. However, everyone knew, after this silence, a destructive storm that would determine the fate of countless lives in the Great Thousand World was brewing. In the eastern region of the spiritual demonic continent, countless figures stretched endlessly. On this day, the vast majority of the Great Thousand World's experts had gathered here. At the highest point, the Flame Emperor Xiaoyan and the Martial Ancestor Lin Dong stood with their hands behind their backs. Behind them stood the 4 mistresses of the Endless Fire Domain and the Martial Realm, along with Qin Tian, the Undying Lord the green-robed sword saint, and other peak experts of the world. Welcome our god. From the army of the extraterritorial evil races, deafening cheers erupted. All of them knelt in unison. Amidst the frenzied roars, demonic clouds surged and parted, and from within, a white-robed figure slowly stepped forward upon the clouds as if strolling leisurely. It was the heavenly evil god. He gently waved his sleeve, and the thunderous cheers instantly fell silent. Smiling, he looked toward Xiaoyan and Lin Dong and said, "5 years apart, and we meet again. You have indeed improved over these years. But let me tell you, once I return to my nine-eyed state, there will be no one in this great thousand world who can oppose me." Before his words even finished, the heavenly evil god suddenly stepped forward. A terrifying demonic pressure exploded outward. A million zhang-wide pillar of demonic energy shot into the sky, devouring all light between heaven and earth, plunging everything into darkness. On the side of the great thousand world, countless experts fell into darkness and cried out in terror. This darkness eroded the mind fear, spread uncontrollably, even heavenly sovereigns could not resist it. Just as chaos erupted, a massive flame suddenly ignited. It transformed into a slowly rotating flame lotus, while 8 ancient ancestral symbols rose and revolved around it. Within the darkened world, the light of the flame lotus and the ancestral symbols carved out a small domain, resisting the darkness. Yet the darkness still dominated most of the sky, constantly eroding the light, attempting to engulf the great thousand world once more. "I told you long ago, the two of you alone are no longer enough to stop me." The heavenly evil god watched coldly as endless darkness surged from his sleeve, spreading without end. The light was gradually consumed. Seeing this, countless beings in the great thousand world felt their hearts turn cold. Was the heavenly evil god truly gaining the upper hand? Just as despair began to spread, a clear and bright laughter suddenly echoed across the entire great thousand world. "If 2 are not enough, then add 1 more." At that instant, countless people turned their heads in shock, and then began trembling with excitement, because behind them, boundless spiritual energy gathered, and a mysterious power of the world descended from the heavens, gradually forming an endless radiant curtain. The firmament ranking, Qin Tianqing Yanjing and other peak experts shouted in excitement, "It's Mu Chen. He's finally here. He has invoked the firmament ranking. He's going to leave his name on it." Beneath the radiant curtain atop a mountain, a slender figure slowly appeared. It was Mu Chen. He raised his head, gazing at the firmament ranking, then brought 2 fingers together like a brush, and slowly wrote downward. At the same time, his voice thundered across heaven and earth. "Today, upon the firmament ranking, there shall be the name of Mu Chen." At the moment his fingers touched, the world trembled. A mysterious force resisted him, preventing him from writing. Mu Chen closed his eyes briefly. Then suddenly, space behind him shattered. 2 figures stepped forth from the void and landed beside him. They wore black and white robes and looked exactly like him. They were the endless radiance body and the primordial spirit body. All heavenly sovereigns stared with burning eyes. These were 2 of the legendary 5 primal bodies. Mu Chen had actually cultivated them successfully. At that moment, the black and white Mu Chen struck simultaneously. 2 torrents of spiritual energy burst forth from their palms, converging at Mu Chen's fingertips. His fingers gradually became translucent. With a solemn expression, Mu Chen slowly raised his hand, as if it weighed 1,000 tons, and pressed down once more. In that instant, the obstruction shattered. On the ancient firmament ranking, mysterious power gathered, stroke by stroke, until finally, a single character was carved deeply, Im-Yu Mu. As the final stroke fell, boundless spiritual light erupted. A mysterious force descended like enlightenment, pouring into Mu Chen and his 2 bodies. All could feel. The pressure emanating from him had completely surpassed the saint grade. This was a true transformation. Congratulations on entering the ranking. From afar, the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor cupped their fists toward Mu Chen. At this moment, Chen had finally reached the same level as them. Across the spiritual demonic continent and the entire Great Thousand World, countless beings erupted in cheers. Congratulations, Mu Sovereign. Your name is on the ranking. Shinten, the green-robed sword saint, and many peak experts bowed with cupped fists, their voices filled with awe and respect. Because from the moment Mu Chen inscribed his true name, he had gained the qualification to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Flame Emperor and martial ancestor. From this moment onward, Mu Chen became the third being recorded on the Firmament ranking of the Great Thousand World.